What's up, football fans? Welcome to another episode of The Extra Point. I am your host, Phil Ruskin, and unlike most weeks where I have one guest, boom, we switched it up. I got two. Mike, what's up, man? Tell us, first of all, before you tell the people where they can find you, how to interact with your content, can you share where you are, please?
Oh, I am at the Fantasy Football Expo here in Canton, Ohio. I am excited. We got in today. Really excited to get to meet and see everybody and mingle. We'll be doing that tomorrow. So really excited.
Awesome, man. And as always, Kendall, most dapper man in the room, best looking. You have the best beard of the three of us. You have the best outfit of the three of us. And I think you have the best background. So maybe we'll just let you do the show and me and Michael go grab a beer. I don't know, man. We're out. So Kendall, what's up, buddy?
Hey, man. Happy to be hanging out, man. Happy to be on the show on Thursday. I've actually had a pretty long work week. I've not talked football with nearly enough people. So sometimes I can get through the end of the week now. I was fiending a little bit, man. Good to be hanging with the boys, talking about some do not drafts, man. Let's get the nasty boys in there.
Yeah, I was gonna say, let's do it. We got a lot to cover tonight, so we're gonna dive right in. Real quick at the top, you guys know the announcements. Hit the subscribe button, jump over to the Fantasy Football Tavern, give Kendall a subscribe, jump over to the Get Right Fantasy Network, give Mike and the boys a subscribe. Obviously, if you're watching, listening here, hopefully you're already subscribed. If not, subscribe to The Extra Point. You can find all of our content on Spotify and Patreon. And then little plug for me, I'm a staff writer for Dynasty Pros. Head on over to dynastyprosfootball.com. Check out some of my written content if you're not able to catch the show live, or if you're, not listening to the podcast while you're mowing the lawn or whatever it is you guys do. So let's dive in. Tonight, we are going to go through Do Not Draft list. And this is for redraft. And I'll just make two quick caveats at the top because we got a lot of players to cover. We are not saying do not draft these players under any circumstance. What we are going to do is kind of give you, not maybe both sides, but maybe give you a very singular look at what it is that you're potentially passing on to draft a player like this, or what their return on the investment needs to be to pay off on that draft capital. So every player has their price. Of course, you would take every player at certain ranges within the draft, but the do not draft list tonight, we'll give you our sides. We'll give you what we feel. But we're going to start at the top with the quarterback position. And then another thing really quickly I want to make mention of for Mike and Kendall, if they feel like it's a specific format, they'll let you know that, right? So if we're talking about quarterbacks and it's a super flex, right? We don't want to maybe take a guy in a certain position. We'll let you know that, right? Or if it's one tight end premium, right? That maybe changes our takes a little bit. So if you guys, as we get deeper into the player pool tonight, right? Just make sure if you have a caveat, you guys, I'll do the same, but make sure you just throw that out to the folks listening who say, oh, but Mike said to take this player or not to take this player. And I did. And where everything comes a little grain of salt. And as always, at the top, everything we talk about presumes health. Everything assumes health. So let's jump in. And Kendall, I'm going to start with you at the quarterback position. Give us one player. We're going to each go three guys at each position. So give us your number one player on the do not draft list, starting at the quarterback position.
Right on. All right. Well, let me start it off with, I'll do mine kind of an ADP order, I guess. I think that'll flow pretty good. Josh Allen is on my do not draft list. He's on my do not prefer to draft list. Where I would take him is if he falls to the 3-4 turn specifically. But this year, I really like I think there's a very flat tier of quarterbacks after like QB 9. And I think some of them have some pretty decent upside. But it's a better late round quarterback pool than anticipated. So because I like a lot of ranges where they go, I think Allen will finish as the QB1. He is QB1 in my rankings. I just don't like taking him as the first QB off the board. It completely, it just negates any possibility for getting value, positional value, ADP value later on. It just takes it off the board. My favorite ways to draft with Hero RB this year aren't super conducive to taking him where he goes. So, unless I'm getting him in the early 4th where I will take him, I'm even not ridiculously excited about it, to be honest, where I look at where my drafts finish. So I'm just not going to be the first one to take the QB1 off the board this year.
And for everyone that's watching, listening, you're not getting Josh Allen in the 4th. So if you pass on him after the 3rd round, you're not getting him. And that's just the way that it is. We all know right now, obviously it's August, early August, preseason has officially started. People are getting excited. If you've been doing mock drafts with us, if you've been hopefully you haven't done a real league draft yet, but unless it's a slow draft, but if you have, there's probably a good chance the majority of the players that you want are going to move at least a half of a round up as we get closer to camp, if not a full round. So just keep that in mind when we go through ADPs. Those are out as of August 8th. So, Mike, give us one of the guys of your 3 in the quarterback position do not draft, and tell us why maybe we should be cautious of this player.
The 3 guys that I have are a little bit more on the bottom tier of drafts, kind of on the opposite of what Kendall was talking about at the top. I mean, these guys are more guys that I probably wouldn't want to touch for those late round guys. One is Russell Wilson / Justin Fields. I mean, honestly, I don't know which one's going to be getting the job. They're both middling to me. I've never been a fan of Justin Fields in general. I don't think he is what people thought he was. Anyone looks good with the wide receivers he had. I mean, those guys were fantastic. But I want no part of these guys. I think Wilson is slightly better of a quarterback, but not by much. I did a thing last year about comparing the two, and Wilson was, statistically in the last 3 years, much better than Fields, except for, of course, the rushing aspect.
Right.
But they're both free in redraft, so I'm not saying not take them, but they're really they're guys that I just don't feel comfortable with taking at all. And I'm actually going to give a few other reasons in a little bit for, a couple of the guys we're going to be talking about. So I'm going to wait to give you the stat, but I'm telling you, those two I'm not really high on.
Yeah, and I think it's hard, right? Like Russell's hurt right now. Is Justin Fields really going to be the guy? Is Russ going to be the guy? There's just a lot of ambiguity there. So, and my first quarterback we'll talk about here is CJ Stroud. If you're listening to the show and you heard Kendall say don't draft Josh Allen, then you heard me say don't draft CJ Stroud, you probably turned the show off, right? These guys don't know what they're talking. Again, we're not saying don't draft these players. I think if you listen to what Kendall said about Josh Allen, it's where he's going at his price. And that's my argument is that CJ Stroud is going as the QB5 right now, but he's a pocket passer. And I see a path where Jared Goff, where Jordan Love, where Brock Purdy could all finish ahead of CJ Stroud. Realistically, I do think that is in their range of outcomes with those offenses that they have with San Francisco, with the Packers, and with the Lions. I do think it's a possibility all 3 could finish ahead of Stroud. You are going to get those players 2 to potentially 5 rounds after what you are getting from CJ Stroud, right? So to me, the hype around Stroud from his rookie season is real. I love CJ Stroud. I think he's a great player. If you have him on Dynasty, you're ecstatic. But in redraft this season, like Kendall said earlier about kind of the antithesis of drafting Josh Allen, I would rather go and load up on wide receiver, especially in single quarterbacks. And super flex is maybe a little different, but in single quarterback, I'd rather go and load up on the wide receivers and running backs, or maybe get myself one of the top 5 tight ends early and still come back with one of the quote unquote pocket passers in Purdy, in Love, or in Goff, because I can get the discount and the range of outcomes. Even if Stroud finishes ahead of him, I don't believe we're going to be talking about a significant point difference at the end of it where he finishes 50, 60 points ahead, right? It could be 20 to 30, and I'm okay with that. So again, I'm not saying don't draft CJ Stroud. I'm just saying if you're not getting one of the rushing upside quarterbacks that early, maybe look to take one of the similar pocket passers a couple rounds and extract some value a little bit later. Kendall, swinging back to you, QB number 2.
Gotcha. It's got to be Deshaun Watson for me going next. The obvious reason, not going to go into, let you figure that one out for yourself.
Yeah.
I'm going to win a lot of leagues this year. I can win several of them without drafting Deshaun Watson. I'm going to feel better about it. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. But analytically, I'm calling him kind of he's a start of the dead zone quarterbacks for me. This is a little bit of a super flex ranking here because he's typically not being drafted in redraft. He will occasionally, but this is mostly for Superflex. We want to give you as many players across. Superflex is becoming pretty popular across pretty much all formats, not just Dynasty. But in that format, I see Deshaun in our mock draft tournament. I see Deshaun regularly go in this weird dead zone where sometimes there'll be 2 rounds after him and still nobody goes. I don't see a massive difference between where I think his range of outcomes are compared to a Daniel Jones or a Russell Wilson that have some rushing upside, a mediocre to flat out bad offense, and just a lot of red flags. He carries a lot of the same risk that many of those other guys do. He's very close to Daniel Jones, except, we've seen a little bit more of an elite upside from him with rushing and passing to some degree. But again, I could make an argument that, just Daniel Jones and neighbors probably gives him more upside than what he is sitting with. There's not enough upside for me to look at him, and I think I could go 2 tiers down and not lose anything. So when that's the case, it's a dead zone QB in Superflex. I'm avoiding him. And even if you think there's this risk, he's fool's gold. But he's still a big name, has legs, has rushing upside. He's my low-end QB too. Why don't I go for some upside because of his rushing? He has the same rushing upside that Russell Wilson does in an offense that might be getting Brandon Ayuk. Just go a little bit later.
Yep. Yeah. Great call out. Great point. We can massage the data to figure out why we don't want Deshaun Watson on our teams. But yeah, I look, Kendall, you and I have done, best and worst picks for startup drafts for Dynasty. We've got a whole series we did together on that. I've never been in on Watson, and I think at the end of the day, most people understand, regardless of the off-field issues, he hasn't been the same guy since Houston, and I don't see a world where it's still a possibility Brandon Ayuk goes to the Browns, which means they lose Amari Cooper. I don't think that's happening. It seems to be that the Steelers is where he's going, but I just don't see a world where I'm with you. I think Watson's probably a pass for morality reasons for me, but from a football,
we both got daughters over here, so we're going to be on the no Deshaun club. Sorry.
Mike, why don't you take us through QB, the second quarterback on your list here, and talk about, why we should maybe be cautious of this next quarterback for you.
So, I mean, unfortunately, I'm sticking with the same theme of dual, quarterback battles in this case, because there's a lot of guys at the lower end that we are unsure of. And those two are, Minshew and O'Connell. At this point, I just don't want anything in those two offenses. I understand who they have. Devontae Adams, they have Jacoby Myers, they have Brock Bowers, Mike Meyer. They have a good crew of wide receivers that they can go to and they can actually do well with. But unfortunately, in this case, I don't trust Minshew in any shape, way, or form.
Right.
O'Connell did okay, but neither finished above QB 20 last season. And in this case, Aiden O'Connell played for most of the season.
Right.
Minshew played for a good part of it, but at the same time, didn't really do well. They have better weapons overall here, but I just don't see it. Both were 62% completion percentage. I'm just out on all of them. For the Raiders in that case, I don't mind grabbing guys like Adams because he's, a volume monster, but
right.
Minshew and O'Connell, I'm just out.
Yeah. And I think if there's something to take away, at least Mike, from what I'm hearing you say, it's not just that it's an ambiguous situation. We don't know who the starter is yet, but there's just a lack of ceiling, even if there was a clear starter. So it's an easy do not draft for these guys, especially if you don't know who it's going to be. But even if you're hoping for a late round stash, the ceiling just may not be there. So I'm going to jump in and do my third quarterback. But before I do, really quick, if you're listening, jump in the comments. Tell us who you guys are on, who's on your do not draft list. We'd love to know. Or if you think that, we're talking about a player and you feel very strongly that we should be drafting him. It's literally what the show's about. So jump in those comments and make sure you're participating in the show as well. I'm going to jump in with QB2 for me here, and it's Trevor Lawrence. He's QB 17 right now, ADP wise. And I think he's probably going to finish about that range. So from paying off his draft cost, it'll probably be about where you draft him, maybe a couple of spots higher or lower. But look, the truth is that he threw for 4,000 yards last year, 21 touchdowns and 14 picks. They did not add anyone to this offense. In fact, they lost Calvin Ridley, replaced him with Gabe Davis. And Kendall, you've talked about this with me a bunch. And Mike, I think we've talked about it as well a couple of weeks ago. That's a downgrade. Yeah. So if you're telling me that they don't have anybody else as an addition to this team, and not every team gets, new rookies, they don't get a Malik Neighbors or a Romo Dunze or a Marv, right? But they didn't draft an offensive skill position guy that's really going to improve this team. I think the Texans and the Colts are the top two teams in that division. I don't see a world where the Jaguars make the playoffs. And ultimately, again, fantasy doesn't always mean your teams have to make the playoffs. Devontae Adams was wide receiver 8 last year, and the Raiders didn't hit the playoffs, right? But like my point being is
Mike
that
Evans.
if you're going to be, Mike, well, they made the playoffs, but my point though is that at the end of each and every season, when you go back and redo kind of some of this analysis, you're just not getting ceiling performance from Trevor Lawrence, A, and B, most of the teams that don't make the playoffs and most of the teams that end up finishing, 17 to 32 as far as their offensive ranks are concerned, don't return onesie values at the skill per quarterback position. So I'm not in on Trevor Lawrence in any format. I'm just not. He's just not. I don't have any shares, and I think I may have 3 or 4 shares in best ball. And I've done a couple of 100 best ball drafts, some of those big tournaments. So that for me to say I only have 3 or 4 shares with that many best balls is kind of a lot. But I'm just not going to have exposure to him this season. And I think as year on the clock, even in the super flex league, I think you can grab some other guys, and probably have a similar finish. So let's go around the horn one more time as we finish and wrap up quarterbacks. Kendall, back to you with quarterback numero 3.
Yeah, so this one is a little bit of like a fool's gold pick for me. He's going to be popular to some, but I'm going to fade him. I think this is maybe a little bit more for super flex as well. We can only go through so many quarterbacks in a one quarterback league, right? But I think this has some implications in deeper redraft leagues as well. It's going to be Aaron Rodgers. I still think he's talented. I still think he understands football at a very high IQ. I think he can work with talented wide receivers to make some things happen. I don't think he's going to have a major reason to do so. So my take on Rodgers in that overall offense is kind of like this. They lost their training wheels year last year. It should have been a year of, hey, we're super excited, and it disappoints a little bit. Not as bad as Denver did, but I think it would still disappoint a little bit as they figure some things out. Then I think they could have had a pretty good season this year and get it together, or maybe have sort of a later season like they get it together. The team kind of becomes something. They lost that last year. And so they're going to have Aaron Rodgers' rookie year this year, retool the entire offense. And I just think there's going to be a lot of growing pains there. So that's going to lower the overall offensive production, in my opinion. They have a tremendous defense. Real scary. Real scary.
Very underrated.
Yep.
I see Aaron Rodgers as only needing to be a savvy game manager where he will be an elite real-life quarterback, but very bad for fantasy production. Yeah. I think he's probably going to have low turnovers. I think he's going to be able to feed Breece Hall often and just move the chains however necessary. I think their defense is going to do a lot of heavy lifting in the second half. And there won't be a need for offensive touchdowns. If anything, they're just going to slow the game down. My last point is Braylon Allen is an absolute animal.
Oh, fantastic.
It was very high in my prospecting of him. Mm-hmm. I really thought if he ended up in a pretty good landing spot, that he was going to be way up on my boards, a guy I want everywhere. I think he is going real slept on. We always want running backs that are on teams with very good defenses. You have one here. I think there's a chance he just owns a lot of fourth quarters and turns a lot of heads. I think his dynasty value is going to skyrocket. The first game they're up by 21 in the fourth, for sure. And he runs for 100 yards in the fourth quarter. It's going to happen, but you're not going to see a whole lot of Aaron Rodgers. I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see Aaron Rodgers on the field in some fourth quarters, just because MetLife is dangerous to walk on. A lot of reasons to just kind of fade him when you don't need to.
Yeah.
I want to add to you for Aaron Rodgers too.
Yeah.
O-line is they're retooled. They have a bunch of older, good vets. I mean, Tyron Smith is a awesome left tackle, Hall of Famer, the whole deal. They also have Dwayne. I think did Dwayne Brown stay, if I remember correctly?
I don't remember. I'll be honest.
I don't remember, but they grabbed Smith either way. They have, their interior line is okay. They drafted a decent, center in last year's draft. So, I mean, they're not the best line. I don't see a lot coming from it. So I'm definitely on board with you there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, jump in, Mike, and tell us your last quarterback here. And then I'll obviously finish mine as we wrap the quarterbacks and move into a new position here.
Sure. And I also wanted to piggyback off of Trevor Lawrence that you mentioned before.
Yeah.
Well, to be honest, if anyone was around, they compared the stats for Trevor Lawrence and Daniel Jones. People, one quarterback that everyone doesn't like, and they saw that they are exact identical stats. Just saying, it's one of those things where, as much as people are on Daniel this year for certain reasons, I'm not on
You
it
might
with
be able to
Trevor
get
either.
Daniel Jones on the
But he's
waiver wire
cheaper.
in a single quarterback league. You might be able to get Daniel Jones off the waiver wire.
He's much.
It's
cheaper.
possible he doesn't get drafted.
Oh,
so
one QB, he's not getting drafted. Two
That's what
QB,
I mean.
He's a solid one.
Yeah.
I think he's a decent QB too. Anyway,
Yep.
Let's go to mine. So mine are another another QB battle. Is the Denver quarterbacks.
I'm sensing a theme here, Mike.
It's the only theme I got. I looked at your group. I'm like, holy crap, who can I pick from? Those are the guys I was looking at. So for me, I mean, it's got to be the Denver quarterbacks. I mean, I'm a really big fan of Bo Nix. I think he in Dynasty is a great pick. I think he'll outright win this in the in a few weeks. But at the end of the day, do you want to be a part of that particular offense? Maybe. I mean, Sean Payton's not horrible. Cortland Sutton's okay. He's serviceable. But at the end of the day, they don't really have much else going on. You got Jason Stidham and freaking Zach Wilson, who no one likes.
No thanks.
I'm out.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, Bo Nix is probably the only one that I'm willing to take, but not in 1 QB. Definitely not in 2 QB. I'm just out. But Dynasty, Bo Nix to the moon.
Yeah, I think Dynasty's fine. Obviously, we're talking redraft tonight. So,
I'll
finish us up here. My last quarterback's going to be the star of episode 1 of Hard Knocks with the Chicago Bears. I think Caleb Williams is justified as the 101 in Superflex Dynasty leagues. I have no problem with that. I think Caleb Williams is going to be fantastic. Is he going to be the next Patrick Mahomes? I don't know. That's a little bit ridiculous for me. Yeah. Do I see QB1 seasons in his future? 100%. Do I see him being a staple at the position? Yes. It's his rookie season. He's being drafted right now as the QB 11, ahead of Brock Purdy, ahead of Jared Goff, who both have much better offenses and have been QB1s. And here's the real reason. Only 8 rookie quarterbacks, have ever scored more than 250 fantasy points. And of that 8, only 3 have ever been over 300. So for context, 250 fantasy points last year, Derek Carr was at QB 17, 252 points. I just, that's not a good name to be in. That's not a good company to be in. That's not a good name to be with. Now, if anyone can do it, it's Caleb for 2 reasons. 1, because he's been set up for success the way he has. And 2, I think he's a good quarterback. But if it's a single quarterback league, I'm not taking him as my QB1 and building around him. If it's super flex and I've got one of the alphas, if I've got a Jalen Hurts, if I've got a Patrick Mahomes, a Josh Allen, a Richardson, then maybe if I go load up on other positions. But to be drafted right now at QB 11 ahead of Purdy and Goff, to me, that's just hype, and I'm not quite buying that hype until I see it. Again, if this was Dynasty, totally different conversation. But in redraft, his rookie season, even with the weapons, even with the the hype around Hard Knocks, and keep that in mind. Hard Knocks players generally go up at least 1, if not 2 full rounds after Hard Knocks ends, and Roma Odunze to the moon, because if you don't get him in the 4th, you're not getting him. So I just think it's something to keep in mind for Caleb Williams. I want to jump in a couple quick comments here before we move off the quarterback position to the running backs. Ralphie Baum, we asked earlier, who are some guys you're just kind of taking away? Oh, excuse me, wrong one that I wanted to show from him. There we
Herbert.
Go. There it is. Yeah. Definitely not taking Herbert even in a super flex league. Kendall, Mike, 10 seconds each. Thoughts if it is a super flex? Obviously, in single quarterback, we're probably not taking him as our QB1. Are you taking him in super flex?
I would take him in either.
Okay.
He's a good late round guy for me. I have no problem taking Justin Herbert. He's a very good quarterback, and I think that's all that he needs to be for this particular offense with Greg Roman. I mean, all he's got to do is spread the ball around and field. He's a field general. I think he'll do just fine with the weapons that he has there with Joshua Palmer, with Brandon Rice and Quentin Johnston. I mean, he's got a good set, a good amount of weapons there that he can really work with. Yep. I'm pretty high on him in general, but I like him as a really good sleeper for late round QB.
Yeah. And we got Goku here saying Hopkins, DeAndre Hopkins, Cortland Sutton, and Jay Williams. I'm assuming Javonte Williams, but it could be
it's
yeah.
Javonte.
Okay, I guess it could have been Jameson Williams. Any player coming off a major injury rules it out for him with injury history.
Yeah.
To be honest, I generally agree with that. Breece Hall kind of broke the mold last year by becoming one of those players that came off an ACL and then just ripped it up and did what people expected him to do. So yeah, interesting to see kind of what happens. But let's jump in on some running backs. Kendall, why don't you kick us off? We'll kind of keep going around the circle here. Why don't you kick us off with one of the running backs that's on your do not draft list here?
All right, let's kick it off. Rachaad White, off my board. Don't love it. So why am I saying this on what is clearly a talented player? Finished, I don't have stats in front of me right now, but he was, I believe, a top 5 across a few formats, better in PPR. Here's my take on him, right? He was not projected by any amount of projections to be having the volume that he did, and definitely nowhere near the receptions. We knew he was a pass catcher.
Yep.
There's a lot of talented pass catchers that don't approach near that volume. And we also, the offense as a whole, massively outproduced production. Okay, well, it's projections, right? I think all that comes down. Okay, you're losing Dave Canales, big loss.
Big loss.
Now I love the I love the coaching tree that the new guy, what Cohen is coming from. Mm-hmm. He's still new. Okay. Yeah. Here's my big anti Rachaad White thing. It's the tier he's in at running back just makes no sense to me. I think he belongs in the dead zone. Okay. They drafted a talented pass catcher who's already looking good in training camp. Yeah, if you just take 25% of his targets and catches away, because he might lose third down in its entirety, and it would be better for the team for him to do so. So you take away a lot of those receptions. You take his volume down to what we always projected he would be at, because you're not going to have a volume back managing 3.6 yards a carry. That's just not something an NFL team's going to do. So reduce both of those by 10 to 25%, decent range there, but that can easily be eaten up by one, if not two backs, because they have a few others they at least want to try out from time to time. You do that, and he is absolutely a low volume dead zone running back that probably won't get a ridiculous amount of goal line when you have a guy like Mike Evans who you can throw a jump ball fade to. So for all those reasons, the reasons we took him last year are the reasons people are still thinking he's going to be that way. He has 0 arrows pointing up, about 20 that are pointing down, and I think he belongs in the Ramondre Stevenson sort of tier where it starts to get a little bit murky and a little bit flat. He does not nearly belong in the same sentence as Isaiah Pacheco and James Cook and things of that nature.
Right. All right. I will say this for the folks that do believe in Rachaad White. Baker Mayfield is the #1 quarterback in the league in check down. So again, we are saying don't avoid all these players. They're going to have awful seasons. We are saying most of what we're saying is relative to where their ADP is, or like Kendall's saying, there's some value that you can extract earlier in higher priced running backs, or maybe later. So Rachaad White on Kendall's do not draft list. And again, it's hard to repeat what you did 2 seasons in a row. So he's got better competition in Bucky Irving. I have Pacheco, Cook, White in that order. If I had to stack those 3 up, I think a lot of people probably do, but yeah, we'll see. Mike, give us one of the running backs that's probably you're not going to have a ton of exposure to.
So one of the guys that I probably don't have a lot of exposure to is definitely Jonathan Brooks. For me, his ADP right now is at 90. So he's a mid 7th round guy. But honestly, he's not going to be cleared until at least week 4. And that's being generous. He had his injury November 11th. He didn't get surgery until I think end of December. So September is kind of pushing that 9-month, recovery rate. He is running. He is doing what he needs to. But at the end of the day, they're not going to want to push their new rookie star running back right away.
Yep.
And they have Chuba Hubbard, who, by his own credit, at the end of last year, did pretty decent. I know he's not a world beater, but he can do well. So I am pretty
competent.
Very competent. I can see Jonathan Brooks maybe coming back after maybe week 6. I could be wrong, and I'm probably am. But he's incredibly talented. I don't mind him in Dynasty. Redraft, of course, I'm just out. If I'm losing 4 weeks or more, it's mid 7th round. I can get guys like Deontay Johnson, his teammate. I could get Devin Singletary, who might have the back of the field. I don't know after tonight.
Yeah, I was going to say.
After Eric Gray just blew it up,
Yep.
and I've been low on him. But, hey, second team preseason, let's keep the hype down. Eckler, Brian Robinson, Rashid Rice, Xavier Worthy, quarterbacks if you want to at that point. You got Brock Purdy. So, I mean, there's a lot of guys I prefer over Jonathan Brooks in that aspect.
I'll just say this about Brooks. It does not seem likely from Dave Canales' comments that he will go on IR. It seems like he's going to be back week 3 or week 4. So to your point about grabbing him in, the 7th round, regardless of the value, it's hard to clog a roster spot for a month. Right. And
without being on IR.
And Kendall and I are all in on Brooks and Dynasty. I think he's probably our number one target. I mean, Trey Benson, Brooks is pretty close for me. I think Kendall will tell you it's definitely Brooks for him. Yeah. But this isn't Dynasty. This is redraft. So I think you're right. It's not just that he comes back week 3, week 4. It's that they're not going to push him to be the bell cow until maybe the middle of the season if he's even up for it. So
if that.
Interesting one to keep in mind. I'm going to make mine quick because we still got a lot more players to get through. Alvin Kamara is on my do not draft list. RB16 off the board right now. He hasn't played a full season since his rookie year. He did play a full season last year, but he was suspended, so he technically didn't have a full season of value for you. He had less than 700 rushing yards last season, and all of his value comes in the passing game. And you're going to say, well, but Phil, it's a full PPR league. Don't I want, running backs are going to catch the ball? You do, but here's the caveat. You're passing on James Conner, Kenneth Walker III, David Montgomery. All of those 3, I think, will have better seasons than Alvin Kamara. And Ryan Ramczyk is out for the season. So that is a massive piece of the offensive line that they lose. And Carr checks it down. And Derek Carr's Derek Carr. Let's call a spade a spade. He's going to finish probably as a back-end QB2. He's not going to have a ton of upside. They just lost their number 1 offensive tackle for the year. And it's a brand new offense that they're installing. So I'm out on Alvin Kamara. If he hits and he, finishes inside the top 12, I don't think he will. Then I'm happy being wrong. But the vibes, the Ramczyk situation, his history of what he's done. The Christmas Day 5 touchdowns was a long time ago. And I think you've got to put that out of your mind and call it what it is. So I'm out on Alvin Kamara. Kendall, let's do running back number 2 here.
All right, I think some people in the chat are gonna like this and hate this, but
I was gonna say the chat's getting hot right now. The chat's getting real hot.
All right, let's hear it. I'll fire up another drink too. We'll get real spicy with the takes, and I'll fire back in chat what you guys are going to. But look, I'm gonna shotgun a couple of them real quick. It's Zamir White for me, but let me be clear. I'm not saying that I don't think Zamir White has a path. Like I think everyone's really burying him, and it's just kind of unfair because there's clearly a path for him to destroy his ADP too. I'm not worried about Rashad White hurting me. I am worried about Zamir White hurting me a little bit. He could kind of shock people a little bit. But I'm going to go by Vegas usually wins bets, right? Their stats are always pretty good. Okay, here's what I know about the Vegas projections. Okay, offense not projected to be super great as a whole. It's an ambiguous backfield where he's a 2-down bruiser. His pedigree is absolutely not that of a pass catcher by any means. The rookie Dylan from New Hampshire, I forget where he's at, but
Dylan.
He's looking good at camp. Now, I do think he's a better runner than Zamir. I actually don't think so, for sure. But for Zamir to be a 2-down bruiser on a team that I don't think makes the red zone very often, that's kind of a big deal for me. All right, this is David Montgomery was very, very good. He didn't catch a ridiculous amount of passes, but he was usually involved in an offense where he could grind it out, but he'd get the goal line work too. I think it gets the goal line work. Just how much is there to go around? What if Dylan if he ends up really carving out a 3rd down role? I just don't see the valuable touches for Zamir in that offense, and I don't think there's going to be some volume there. I think he could do 4 yards a carry, 20 carries a game for 8 fantasy points, and it's just not going to be enough. So
I think Zamir White is going to be a hot topic. I think there's a lot of people that are in. I think there's a lot of people that have some fear. I think what will help him is number 1, Alexander Mattison and Dylan Law, but it doesn't inspire great confidence. Number 2, people are going to take a look at that last 5 games of the season and that pace and go, "Oh, I've got an RB1 here." So, yeah, I think it's a good call out. Mike, running back number 2, who you got?
So for me, I have good old Josh Jacobs, the former Las Vegas Raider.
Las Vegas Raider.
So I'm actually a decent fan of Jacobs. I like him, but his AVP, it's unfortunately way too high for me in the early third. Jacobs, he has Dillon. He has a really strong rookie with Marshall Lloyd waiting as well. Jacobs might have gotten a good, decent contract and could be the reason, could get a ton of targets. But he was incredibly inefficient last season, with 3.5 yards per carry, which was the lowest of his career. Green Bay's O-line is average, and Green Bay's offense, they're right at that. They're around 17th in the league in targets to the running back as well, with Love last season. So, Jacobs could be involved with the pass game, but I do think that Lloyd eats into that particular number a little bit. Yeah. So,
well, let's talk about the man that was replaced, I should say, by Josh Jacobs, and that's Aaron Jones.
There you go.
RB18 has only played 2 full seasons his whole career. I had to look that up because I didn't think he'd ever played a whole season. Yeah. I was like, no, his injury history, right? So look, people are going to say, Phil, he had 4 years of RB1 from 2019 to 2022. You're crazy. Aaron Jones is going to be great for 1 season in redraft. Sure, that was in Green Bay. He now plays in Minnesota, which is a new offense with a rookie quarterback. He's 29 years old. He's been banged up in an offense where Ty Chandler beat Alexander Madison out for the job last year. So do not sleep on Ty Chandler and think that he is not a factor to take work away from Aaron Jones. And what you're giving up is you're drafting. I've seen it, and I've seen it a ton. I've seen Aaron Jones drafted over David Montgomery, Zamir White. Whether you're in or you're out, he is being drafted over him. James Conner, Raheem Mostert. Now, Raheem Mostert's older. He has injury history too, but I do like the fact that Achane and Jalen Wright are there, which I think kind of helps Mostert. Maybe his volume doesn't have to be there, but his efficiency can. My point is I don't trust Aaron Jones. I don't want him even as my RB2. I don't have any shares in best ball. I'm not going to have any shares in redraft. It's just someone that's off my board. And this is one of those times when it's not I'm okay being wrong. I just don't think I'm going to be wrong. I think Aaron Jones is going to miss games and he's going to return a mid to low RB2 season, if that. So I'm out. Kendall, take us home as we wrap the running backs. And I know I see the show doc. This one's going to hurt my soul, but I understand where you're coming from a little bit. But let's go, man. Do it.
Hey, love the player. Don't love him in redraft. It's Trey Benson, baby. No for me in redraft. Okay. Dynasty is catching on. I think it's probably the biggest marketplace for people jumping in and enjoying Dynasty as I've ever seen. The 2024 rookie class being historically great. Most offensive pieces drafted on offense, I think, ever. It's got people buzzing. What that has done to the rookie ADP, it's through the roof. Look at how Marvin Harrison is going in rookie drafts. Jamar Chase was generational and went in the 6th round?
7th.
Right? Marv is going in the 2nd. So all the ADPs for all the rookies are getting pushed up to a point where we used to target them in early best ball, right? Because that was how you'd win a lot of early best ball tournament, right? As you'd get in on these rookies before the ADP gets pushed up. Usually a good way to go. A lot of upside there. I just don't see the upside in that particular offense. Now, let me clarify. Do I see upside in case of an injury? Yeah, you can make the case for literally every RB2 in the entire league. If someone's... Yes. Okay. Again, we're assuming for the most part, no injuries. Yes, we're taking into consideration Connor is a little bit older, has some injury history, but you look at most seasons, injury-prone players don't get injured nearly as much as you think. My challenge is that Connor's not washed. We make this argument every year with washed old running backs. You guys watched Connor at the end of last year? Was an absolute monster.
Oh, yeah.
Fantastic. He's not washed. He's very good. He can do everything in the field. He doesn't need to come off for 3rd down. Trey Benson might eat into some of that 3rd down work, but it's not that he's like an amazing replacement. Connor's quite good and he's going to get it done often. I don't see a world where Benson just comes in and becomes the Jahmyr Gibbs of last year, takes over the role. Connor's going to be dust. Look, is it there? It's there.
I can't do it.
Okay. Then you tell me why he's not making waves over DeMarcado. Not a single camp report has him like
all I'm going to
better.
say is this. Next week, we have league winners, the opposite of this show. You're making me rethink Trey Benson because he was on my list for league winners. So now I got to go back and do it. But Mike, tell me.
I'm gonna help him out a little bit because everybody
you're gonna help Benson out, because if you're not, I'm cutting the mic.
Oh no, I'm helping out Connor here because in this case, because everyone in the chat is like, oh, he's no. Let's just be clear. From week 9 to 18, and I know I'm including 18 in here, but from week 9 to 18, I want you guys to take a guess on where James Conner was. Running back, what?
7.
3.
Close. He was 8. Running back 8.
Yeah.
He was still a top 10 running back for those, and that's the whole point. He's still a viable running back that can do well. Will he get hurt? Possibly. Will it be for a long period of time? Who knows? You can't. I agree with everything that Kendall had to say. I'm sorry.
Well, take us through one of the guys that you're out on here as we kind of get into. Let's do we'll do quick takes here.
I know this is going to start everyone in the chat, but I don't really care. Devon Achane. I'm a very cautious guy. I like my stud running back that I can be drafting in the second round to be someone that I can, be a bell cow and a workload, carry that workload.
Yeah.
I don't see it with Achane. He's a smaller back. I'm not saying that he's not talented. You can give me all the metrics and all the stats that you want about his effectiveness and how well he did. Honestly, I just don't see it. And for his ADP, it is incredibly too high. I don't trust it at the second round or end of the second round, roughly. For me, Mostert he was RB2 last season,
and he's still technically the starter.
So for me, I rather wait until the later rounds to get Mostert. And they're both injury prone. Let's just be clear. Achane didn't play for 6 games and still finished. I mean, he finished at RB 24.
Yeah.
So for me, I mean, come on.
I think that's the hard part, Mike. I think you're right. It stirred up a hornet's nest in the chat. I can see it, and
that's fine. And I knew it would.
But here's the thing. Fine. I think people need to remember, because the thing that I think that you said that is the most important piece is for his ADP. He is being drafted right now as the RB6. The RB6. He's going in the second round. I want Achane as my RB2. You can't do it unless you start RB, and you know what I mean? Like, it's just,
if you do robust possible. RB, then you can do it. But I'm not spending that capital on a guy like that and doing it that way.
People are gonna look at 7.8 yards a carry.
No,
I get it. Doing 19 touches, 100%. what it takes other guys 30 touches. So it's hard. I'll be honest. Achane is expensive, so you have to be right. I think that's the caveat, right? 100%. You have to be right if you're taking him at his ADP. I'm gonna do this one quick. This is I was looking at the wrong part of the old sheet here. It's Nick Chubb. I don't think it needs to be said too much. You're drafting a name. If you want to take him as a super late round flyer in best ball, great, go for it. He'll probably be the goal line back. You know what I mean? Like, he'll have relevance this year. He'll score touchdowns. When is he back? What is his timeline? And more importantly than what is his timeline, what is Jerome Ford's role going to be when Nick Chubb does come back? Because I think the assumption is people are saying, well, it's Nick Chubb, the name value. He's just going to go right back into his role. I think it's going to be a timeshare, and I think Jerome Ford's going to have way more value than people think, especially if he starts the year well. So I'm out on Nick Chubb. The injury, the multiple injuries, the age, he doesn't have a, he's going to be ready by week 2. Says it doesn't have a timeline, hard and fast date. So, in that range, give me Trey Benson, give me Gus, give me some of the wide receivers. If I go hero quarterback and it's a super flex league, maybe it's not sexy, but maybe I'm taking a shot on, Geno Smith, because I started my draft with Josh Allen and loaded up at other positions. So I would rather take other guys in the range where Nick Chubb is going right now, including some of the rookies. So, all right, guys, let's hammer through these wide receivers, because we still got wide receivers, tight ends, and some games at the end. And I will keep you guys. Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Kendall, 1 minute. Wide receiver number 1. Wide receiver number 1.
Okay, I'm staying away from Amari Cooper this year. It's an ADP thing. I don't like Deshaun. I don't love the offense in general, and I think that is going to come along with Amari Cooper. This is really a pro Jerry Jeudy take. I think Jerry Judy's a little bit underrated. I do think I still think he's just a guy, but he's not bad, and he's just a guy in the NFL. Okay, it's underrated to say he's just a guy. Yeah, he's still in the NFL, still getting paid a lot of money, still a lot better than a lot of other players. I think the target share gets flat, and Njoku looks great. He's going to look great. I just think it's going to be kind of flat, and if the QB play, there's just no way Amari Cooper is going to be able to elevate past his ADP into he's outside of league winner category, and I think he's starting to be outside of, I don't see many categories of just he's a pure value. So you're taking away all the things that I need to win a league, and you're just giving me with he might be a fine pick at his range. But look at some of the players around him, and I just don't think it makes sense. Like really,
who would you take over him?
Literally everyone in his entire round.
Yeah.
Like if I'm looking at a previous draft,
Keenan Allen or Mark Cooper.
See, that's the Keenan Allen goes almost 2 rounds later, and I think they're completely flat. But I like the QB play in Chicago a little bit more. So, like, that's my thing. You're asking me. You're probably going to ask me this guy or that guy for guys that are actually in his tier that he's supposed to be in. So I don't go past a minute. I'll just say he's mistiered. I think he belongs in the D Hop, Keenan Allen, JSN Christian Watson tier, which is 2 rounds later than where he goes. He should not be going before Zay Flowers, Calvin Ridley, Godwin, Tank Dell, Pickens, and he does plenty of times.
He's in that group.
It doesn't make sense to me. He needs to go 2 rounds down, and then I can consider him. I just don't love his ADP.
If talent was the only defining reason for it, I'd completely disagree. But with Deshaun Watson, it makes complete sense. I'm kind of upset that they don't have Joe Flacco.
We haven't had a hornet's nest in the chat in a couple minutes. So Mike, this next guy's going to stir it up. Let's stir the pot. Who you got?
Oh yeah. You know what? I will do this guy. I was going to keep it in the AFC North, but I'm actually going to throw it somewhere else. So in this case, it's Puka Nacua. Okay. This is strictly for draft price people. This ADP is incredibly too high. You're taking him at the end of the first seems incredibly high to me. I understand he was a rookie. He had a great season last season. Let's put a couple of factors in there. Cooper Kupp had he was not healthy last season. I don't care what people say. He was hurt. And Puka got a lot of what Matthew Stafford can bring a wide receiver. He is a solid quarterback. He might not be a great fantasy quarterback, but he is a solid Hall of Fame quarterback. I'm going to throw it out there. But recently, he just had this new injury. Yeah, it's going to it might skew him a little bit and kind of bring him back a little bit. I'm kind of hoping he falls to the end of the second. I'm okay with it. Maybe even the top of the third. He's not, but I'm saying maybe. Hoping that. But I'd rather have Cooper Kupp he's a few rounds later in the third, fourth. If Puka's ADP falls, I'll be okay with it. But if not, I'm sticking with Cooper. Cooper Kupp.
I'm going to jump in, Mike, to take a page out of your book because you did all ambiguous quarterbacks in our quarterback segment. I'm going to get into an ambiguous wide receiver room. It's Stephon Diggs.
Not this one. No.
It's Steph Diggs. His ADP right now, he's going in the 3-4 turn. He's wide receiver 18. And here's the part that I can't get on board with. He's going ahead of Tank. He's going ahead of his own team. I understand the leg break and the recovery from surgery, but Tank's been practicing. He's fine. And we still have a month to go. So that one is not a new injury. It's not an ACL, right? That's a bone injury. And I think he's going to be just fine. But Steph Diggs going ahead of Metcalf. Regardless of what you say, Metcalf is the wide receiver 1 on his own team with far less competition. He's going ahead of Devonta Smith, who's going ahead of Cooper Kupp, we just talked about, and he's going ahead of Jalen Waddle. And now Jalen Waddle's been elevated his ADP, but last month he was going ahead of him. And so look, Nico had 1297 and 8 last year. Tank had 709 and 7 in 11 games. So my question is, if you've added Joe Mixon, if you've got a really solid defense, which they do, and you still, whether he's good or not, doesn't matter. You still have a target accumulator of some sort in Dalton Schultz because he's gonna get at least three or four catches. He'll probably get 6 to 7 targets a game. So where's it coming from for Diggs? And that's my problem is when you're talking about a guy who couldn't get it done with Josh Allen when he was the alpha. I don't see how he gets it done with Stroud in a more crowded situation. So to me, I'm just not I'm just out. Give me Tank, yes. Give me Nico, absolutely. But if Diggs is there, I've passed every single time.
So do you want to answer this there, Phil, for John? He goes, Diggs has been the most consistent wide receiver in the NFL since going to Buffalo. Do you think that continues with what you just said?
I'd like to see the stats. I'd like to see the stats on that. Yeah. I'm not saying he's wrong. He's probably right? But at the end of the day, like when he says most consistent, what are we talking about? Consistent fantasy points? Because that's not correct.
Yeah. No.
Right? He's up and I'm out.
I'll give
I'm
it
out.
to
If you guys, this is what we said at the top of the show. If you disagree, if you're like, oh, I don't like this,
you're allowed. Yeah, enjoy.
That's the whole point of the show.
Yeah.
These are just guys that like we're not probably going to be taking, or we're not taking because of an ADP thing, right? So
it's mostly ADP. Like
Kendall,
most of these are ADP.
What you got, Kendall? Wide receiver number 2.
Terry McLaurin. Not loving him. Honestly, his ADP is actually okay. Like he's still a wide receiver 1, going a little bit late for a wide receiver 1. But it's just I like Jaden. I don't love Jaden for what I expect his offensive passing game is going to look like. I don't think they have an offensive genius that's going to be able to scheme anybody open for a lot of things. They have more mouths to feed than they ever have before. I think little not as famous McCaffrey could still do something. He could have a multi-tiered role.
Little not as famous.
Little not as famous. Yeah.
Poor Luke. His mother hates you right now. She named him Luke.
He's also like less famous than like most of his family, to be fair. Like they're all professional athletes. I mean, he might be the underperformer in the group.
There's another Manning brother. There's you guys forgot about Cooper Manning.
Yeah, I was going to say Cooper
and
was
he's the oldest. He's the oldest brother. So
and he was better technically.
He was. Yeah, he was. Anyway,
so here's my thing on Terry. Terry's not terrible.
Take us home on
He's
Terry.
not a league winner. He's not a league winner. I think with how good the 2024 rookie class is, there's still some pretty elite upside in terms of the range of outcomes are all over the place. But I don't care. The floor outcome doesn't matter. Finishing 6th or 12th is the same thing. You're not getting paid. I need a little bit of ceiling, and I don't see that ceiling there. At least I'm not projecting it with Jaden. They have 2 tight ends that are fine. I think Luke can do some things. I think look, their wide receiver room just really isn't terrible. Dotson could be a post-type sleeper.
Could be.
They have no loyalty to him in particular. Like he could be the most quiet 1,000-yard receiving, but I think he's not going to have that many touchdowns. The red zone's not going to be fantastic. Eckler's going to eat into a lot of red zone efficiency. I think Eckler might catch 4 passing touchdowns. That's taken at least maybe 2 or 3 that could go Terry McLaurin's way. I could literally see him finishing with like 1,005 yards for like 3 touchdowns, and that would probably pay off his ADP. But I just don't love the upside case. There's better players to take around him that are league winning. Got to go for league winners. You can't have stability in every single pick. We got to start winning some leagues, not getting 3rd, and he's a 3rd place guy.
Mike, give us one more, and I think we'll probably cut down the tight ends to like 1 or 2 each because I want to play some games here. But give me another wide receiver that you are hesitant about this season.
So just to get Jay his day, or John his day, he was actually very consistent for those seasons, and I looked it up to double check his work just in case.
Sorry, this was for Diggs.
Yeah, this is for Diggs. He was pretty consistent overall. The problem is that's Josh Allen throwing the ball as much as CJ Stroud is doing an incredible job with what he did.
Yeah.
This is a different backfield. When you're the only guy getting targets, it's now crowded. You now have a guy that they just paid. It's not like, they gave Diggs a lower contract on top of that. I'm out on, that. I'd rather have Nico or Tank. That's just me.
Well, to be fair, I said John was probably right. I just wanted to see the numbers because I'm a numbers guy. So, John, appreciate you looking that up, man.
No, you're right.
Thanks for jumping in and actually taking the time to put those numbers are important, man. The data isn't always the truth, but it does tell a story, and it's usually a decent predictor of future outcomes. So, all right, Mike, jump in for a receiver for us.
Sorry, I had to.
I was just thanking John, man. That's awesome.
So for me, my next guy is going to be George Pickens. And there's a lot of reasons behind this. So George Pickens he's an unbelievable contested catch at wide receiver. We're not going to doubt it. One of the best catches I've seen in my life other than OBJ. I mean, honestly, let's be real. Steelers, they were 26th in the league last season with wide receiver targets with Deontay Johnson there and him as well. They just bought in Russell Wilson and Justin Fields, who last season were 31st and 30th when it came to targets to the wide receiver.
And were your do not draft quarterbacks.
Exactly. So, I mean, also that adds, add the news with Brandon Ayuk looking to come there, or it might happen, and that everything's structured, just waiting and all that. I would avoid it altogether, especially where wide receivers like T. Higgins, Malik Neighbors, Tank Dell, who we just talked about, are all going around that same spot. I like those guys better. Also, let's not forget to mention, guess who's the new Steelers offensive coordinator?
Boo.
Oh, that's right, Arthur Smith. Oh, you want to know a little stat about Arthur Smith?
No, we don't.
Let's take let's take
a
little gander. Let's take a little gander into his offense last season. The Atlanta Falcons were, in this case, oh, yeah, that's right. They were 32nd best when it came to targets to the wide receiver. Do I want anything to do with the Steelers wide receiver core other than maybe Pat Freiermuth because of the fact that they can't throw the ball farther than the median routes? I mean, I don't want anything to do with George Pickens in any shape, way, or form.
Well, ironically, I'm struggling with Brandon Ayuk because he doesn't have a team. I just want to say this. Look,
no, you're right.
Brandon Ayuk, as of today, doesn't have a team. Right? Like, yes, he's a Niner, but like he's not. Exactly. And I think the hard part is if a deal doesn't get done, he could get doghoused again. He got doghoused before for not practicing hard. And I don't know what kind of look. For the folks that know me, this. There's definitely some new names in the chat. I'm a former college coach. At the end of the day, I care about some of that off-field stuff. And so I don't know. I could see Brandon Ayuk going one of two ways if he's in San Francisco. I could see him playing his absolute ass off for a contract and saying, hey, I'm worth the money that I think I'm worth. Pay me. Yeah. I could see him being a grumpy dude and just being like, nope, not going to do that. Nope, not going to risk getting injured because I'm exactly. So I don't know which way it goes for Brandon Ayuk. I think if he goes to Pittsburgh, let's go do that side of the coin real quick.
Sure.
You just laid the case out. We don't like the offense. We don't love Arthur Smith. We don't love the quarterbacks. Now you have to deal with Ayuk and Pickens. It's his first season. He's going to be there potentially 3 weeks before the first game. You know what I mean? Like, we're only 3 weeks from football, boy. September 5th is first Thursday night football. So I'm obviously I love Brandon Ayuk. I'm a Niners fan. I think he's a fantastic football player. I don't think he's worth the money he thinks he's worth right now. He hasn't proven 100%. That. But I don't know what to do with him. So I'm just not going to draft him until I do. And then I'll make the decision later of like, all right, is like Kendall likes to talk about, is there value here? Is there something else? So boys, let's wrap up. Really quickly, let's just wrap up one wide receiver. Oh no, we did him. Excuse me. I have one more I wanted to talk about really fast.
Yeah, go for it.
I'm not in love with Kendall. Is going to hate me for saying this.
You are in love with me. Don't lie.
Well, yes. I'm not in love with Chris Olave as my wide receiver one. I can't do it.
Fair.
I'm not saying don't draft Chris Olave. He is the only guy in there. Derek Carr's Derek Carr, but like there's really nobody else in that wide receiver. And Alvin Kamara is the second wide receiver, right? So he's going to have volume. But look, he's been his first 2 years in the league. He was wide receiver 25 and wide receiver 19. So didn't make it as a wide receiver 2 his rookie season and is barely kind of snuck in there in his second sophomore year. Yes, both seasons were over 1,000 yards, but guys, he has 9 total career touchdowns. And that to me is the reason why I'm not comfortable with him as my wide receiver 1. He scored 4 his rookie season. He scored 5 last season. We've already talked about Ryan Ramczyk being out for the year. I just don't know if I have exposure to Chris Olave in Dynasty. I'm very excited about that. And I will have some exposure on my teams to Chris Olave this season in redraft, but only as my wide receiver 2. Right. So if I'm drafting at that turn, that 1-2 turn, and I don't normally draft this way, but some people will, they'll start running back, because that's where the running backs are piled up at that 1-2 turn. I'm not taking Chris Olave at the 3-4 turn if he's there as my wide receiver 1. So should we do some tight ends, fellas?
Sure.
Let's do it. Kendall.
I got a spicy one.
Kendall, why don't you start us off with a tight end that you've got some skepticism around.
Gotcha. All right. Since we might be cutting it short, I'll go with my, I just don't love Evan Ingram. Okay. All right. Here's my general take on him is I think everyone's trying to place him with the same tier as Kittle and Pitts. And I just don't see it that way. I don't see the offense. I'm not projecting the Jags offense to be good enough to support him. I think he got a lot of his heavy target share at the end of the season because Christian Kirk was hurt. And I think he benefited a lot from that. And I think that comes down a little bit. Their the pieces got taken away from the offense, but multiple pieces got added. We got 2 mouths instead of 1. So I think there's a little bit of a flat target share. They should have a second running back mixed in. It probably won't work, but they're going to try to. Evan Ingram, he benefited from a ridiculous target share that I just don't think is super realistic. If that team's going to be successful, they need other people than Evan Ingram to be getting the ball with a high success rate. It seemed like the team wasn't doing well while feeding Evan Ingram. He wasn't leading to wins. He was just available. He is a serviceable tight end. He's talented. I think he had a ceiling outcome last year. I don't see that happening this year. And I just think he's in a tier where he's not a massive difference from Dalton Schultz, from Cole Kmet, but he goes significantly higher. I'm talking there's drafts where he goes 4 rounds higher than those guys. He's not 4 rounds of points per game better. I'm much more comfortable with the upside, at least game per game for Kittle. Pitts, look, I don't love him, but I can clearly see the tea leaves on the upside cases, the pure talent plus what the offense could scheme for him.
Pitts.
Don't see that for Ingram. You put Ingram in the 9th round versus like the 7th. Well, I'm looking at a super flex thing here, but the idea is you got to move him down 2 rounds, and all of a sudden he'll be my favorite of that next tier, but I can't draft him as just a clear worse of this tier and there's a big drop off. And that's still going in a range where you can still go grab your Keon Coleman's and some of that rookie class in some cases where he goes. And that just makes no sense. I shouldn't be taking a tight end that doesn't matter anyways, because the position outside of tight end premium, it doesn't matter when you're punting already. Draft another position.
Mike, who you got, man?
I love Evan Ingram too much to listen to that.
That Evan Ingram slander.
That Evan Ingram slander. I hate it. You know what? I'm going to go with my spicy take, and someone already kind of mentioned it, so I'm kind of happy that I'm doing this one. It's Travis Kelce. He's tight end too. Early. I mean, he's an early 3rd round guy. Man, I'm sorry, but I'm not willing to pay that price for him. And honestly, I'm not willing to pay for any tight end in most situations at that price. Yeah. I mean, the king has to fall sometime at one point. Let's be clear. He's a Hall of Fame tight end. There's no doubt. There's nothing and he's still a really good player. They do have a ton of cooks in the kitchen here. Xavier Worthy coming in. They have Rice. They brought in Hollywood Brown. I mean, they do have a very solid group of wide receivers.
Pacheco catches passes.
That too. So I've also looked at other things where I looked at his stats for the last few seasons and, pretty much his whole career. He already had his peak. And unfortunately, he's starting to go down. And it has a lot to do with, it's age and a lot of other things as well.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's hard to pay the tight end 1 price on him. And I get it. It's hard. It's name. He's done it.
Everything.
It's expensive.
And honestly, a lot of I don't want to use the whole, I don't want to use his off-field stuff because honestly, I kind of do, but I kind of don't. It is kind of a factor if you really think about it. It's one of those things that it's mentally draining to him, and there's a lot of things on his mind. He actually didn't have a great end of the year last season. He really didn't. Yeah. So,
how many touchdowns? I want to ask you guys this real quick. How many touchdowns did Travis Kelce finish with last year?
I think he only had like 5 or 6, like 5. Yeah, he didn't really have a ton. Yeah. So, it's one of those things where those stats are going to slowly go down. I see this year might being that year. And honestly, let's look at who's going around him. Isaiah Pacheco, Nico Collins, Deebo Samuel, all those guys I much rather have than him.
So it's funny you talk about that because my number 1 tight end to do not draft is Sam Laporta. And it is so not sad to hear. It's so sad. It is so sad because he's so good. It is only because of his ADP. And that's the 100%. Problem, right? So look, we know what he did last year. He's being drafted right now as the tight end 2, some areas the tight end 1. It's just him and Kelce, right? But he's being drafted in the 2nd round. And to me, you're passing on every position at that point. If it's super flex, you're passing on a quarterback, you're passing on the wide receivers and running backs that are in that range in single quarterback or in super flex, because there's still some ceiling talent in that range there. He scored 10 touchdowns. The next closest group of tight ends last season were at 5. Mm-hmm. So it's Jameson Williams hype season again. Who knows if it's true or not, but look, the one thing I do think about Jameson Williams, regardless of his end of season value
this year,
he'll still be more relevant than he's been before.
Oh yeah.
which means I see clear touchdown regression for Sam Laporta. They're talking about putting Gibbs in the slot a lot more now. Yeah. So what that means to me is potentially some red zone packages where they've got Monty and Gibbs on the field. We know Gibbs catches passes. So I love Sam Laporta. If you have him in Dynasty, boy, you're happy you have him. If you've got him in a keeper league, you're happy you have him. I can't justify a second round cost to draft someone at his ceiling when all of the statistics and metrics point to him not returning that same value. I just can't pay that.
100%.
So I see in the comments somebody put, man, the comments are blowing up. Here we go. I said I'd take McBride, Laporta, and Kincaid. I would take all of those players over Kelsey and Laporta's in this.
I wouldn't take him over Laporta. I would maybe.
I would because I can get him later.
In best ball, I would
take 8 rounds later. He's just a worse pick there.
Yeah. So
I like Pitts. Pitts is probably Pitts.
But you can get Pitts in the 5th round, 6th round, 7th round. Just
that's my point. I prefer Pitts over all those guys just because of where he is.
Yeah.
Because I actually hated Pitts for the last 3 years. I love him now because his ADP is finally where it needs to be.
Correct.
And he has the quarterback Kirk Cousins is the key for Kyle Pitts.
I agree. Yeah. Look, I love Sam Laporta. Nobody's saying he's a bad player. So it's just way too expensive. So let's do one more each, guys, and then kind of get into some of these. I've got some fun questions, some games I want to play with, and I think you guys will enjoy. So let's do one more. Kendall, another tight end that we should be wary of, or maybe you're just not going to draft at all.
Sure. So I'm not in love with Dallas Goedert. He is a potential target for punting the tight end position. I have one clear argument. It's a personal take. I just think he is going to suffer probably the most on that entire offense from the addition of Saquon Barkley. So I say that because Saquon is going to be a featured piece of the offense. The way they're 100%. Going to feature him is trying to create mismatches off of the line of scrimmage, finding him in space as a target. It's a similar type of play than I think they would have not ran for Goddard, but would have broken down to a Goddard sort of middle of the field. He's just what's happening when the offense is running through 2 wide receivers that are 50 feet. They're just way down the field. They're too fast. They're going deep. And Goddard was a very decent middle of the field sort of consistency threat. I think Saquon eats a lot of that. And as well as trying to protect Saquon and his explosive playability, I think he's going to have to stay in and block a little bit. So that's going to eat into just his overall game-by-game target volume. Then you go into the red zone. Whenever you're punting on tight ends typically need some sort of red zone upside to be considered a late-round target because maybe they only get 4 targets a game, but half of those are red zone looks, right? I don't see a world in which now you have Saquon added to the offense. So you've got the tush push, plus Saquon and wide receivers that can just score a touchdown from 40 yards out. So they might eliminate several red zone trips anyways. You combine all this together, and I don't see enough red zone offense to throw enough touchdowns into Goddard's range of outcomes where I can put him ahead of similarly tiered tight ends that I feel like have a much better range of outcomes for just a reasonable finish, not performing their ADP. I don't see enough cases for him. So I don't hate him. I think he's extremely safe, but when you're punting on a position, you want to go for elite upside to some degree, even if it's an outside chance. And I really don't see it for him. So I got to pass if he's in a similar tier.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. I just want to say this really quickly. I think Dallas Goedert is still a good football player. I think there's a lot of name value there. And I think I'll be honest, Kendall, I was just listening to you. I've actually been taking a decent amount of him in best ball with Jalen Hurts because of the dip.
Yeah.
But now, I've got to get out of best ball mode. Obviously, we've been in dynasty mode, now best ball mode. I got to get into redraft mode. I like what you said. Some of the stuff really makes sense there about Saquon being an addition in that offense. So yeah, Dallas Goedert, maybe an interesting one to think on. So who you got, Mike?
Yeah. So I wanted to add to Goddard too. I when we were doing this and, you asked me to, look at guys that I wanted to not draft Goddard. I looked at him as being one of the guys that I wanted to. And then I looked at stats of certain, his offensive coordinator, Kellen Moore loves going to the tight end. If you look at his particular, last year, Chargers were, if you believe it or not, they were 5th to targets to the wide receiver or to the tight end. I am completely, I like him as that late round dip, and I understand everything that Kendall said, and I agree with it. He's one of those middling guys that I'm like, if I need somebody and I'm unsure, boom, I'll take him.
Well, look, that's why he's on the Do Not Draft show, right? We're not saying 100%
right
you have. It's like, do you want him or do you not want him? You have to make the choice. But there's question marks.
I love this group, and I really appreciate everybody in the chat. You guys have been great, so I really do appreciate it. Hey, guess what I'm talking about right now?
Mike, it's your turn. Who do you got for us? That's fantastic. Thanks, John.
Great timing. So I'm going to be talking about TJ Hockenson. And for me, I mean, geez, ADP is at 117. He's tight end 13, which is really just late ninth round, which, let's just be clear here. For redraft, I'm out. Like, I don't want any part of it. And this is why. Same reason I was a little bit out on Jonathan Brooks. Hockenson is not going to be back until after October, maybe even November, if not, probably later than that. And you know what? I don't want to waste my pick on a guy, my 9th round pick of all things, because guess who you can get in the 9th round? Dalton Schultz, Jerome Ford, who we just talked about 2 seconds ago, Jameson Williams, another guy we talked about, Chase Brown, who's been pretty good and someone that we wanted, that
he might come up in a couple of minutes. Might hang out.
And then we got Courtland Sutton too. And, I like Courtland Sutton a little more than a lot of other people, but he's going to be a target monster for that, for the Denver Broncos. So for me, honestly, I am just out on Hockenson. He's going to be out for at least 8 weeks. And that is, I'm being nice here. It could be 10.
Yeah.
I don't want anything to do with a guy that's going to be out for that long in the 9th round. I'm sorry. I'm out.
I'm going to lump my last 2 into one because I just want to say one quick thing about the first player, and I do want to talk about the second. I'm in on Brock Bowers and Dynasty. I am out this season in redraft. The initial Raiders depth chart came out, and they posted their starting formation in 12 personnel. Mike, we talked about earlier. Ambiguous quarterback situation. It was part of your quarterback. Like, who's the quarterback going to be? What's the identity of the team?
Oh no, I was saying that. I'm saying that for draft, like for the.
Oh no,
I don't care about the depth chart.
I'm saying, no one does. But my point is that they're going to use him as like a hybridized wide receiver. But you talked about earlier, Devontae Adams. He was the number 2 target earner in the league last year behind CeeDee Lamb, who finished as wide receiver 1. So are they just going to throw it to him? I can't with Bowers this year in year 1. David Njoku is a player I just want to mention. I love David Njoku. He was a league winner. I won a championship. A lot of people did. I won a championship with him last year as my tight end. I had obviously other good pieces. Everyone that made the finals had good pieces. You all did too. My point is that I went and looked at the math. He's going as tight end 11. I think that's fine. I would take him there. I think that's the right value. His average points per game with Deshaun Watson was 8 points per game. His average points per game, in contrast with Joe Flacco, was 18.2. It's so hard for me because Mark Andrews, for contrast, I wrote this down as a stat. Before his injury, was averaging 13.1 points per game.
Wow.
So was on pace to be one of the tight end ones until he got injured. And then Laporte obviously crushed it. My point is that just be wary of David Njoku. If you don't believe in Deshaun Watson,
you can't believe in Njoku.
I think you can, only because you're not paying a premium. That's what I'm saying. He's not really on my do not draft list. It's more of just like, ask yourself some questions of, like you guys talked about earlier, is there better value? Do I think there might be a player who maybe on paper isn't as high in the rankings or doesn't look as good, but has a path to more relevant targets, right? Like, to me, Jake Ferguson, obviously, he's being drafted higher than Njoku, but to me, Jake Ferguson is the player that's not being drafted in the top 5 that I think has the best chance to finish in the top 5 at tight ends this season.
I smash the button when Jake Ferguson is available.
100%.
Smash it.
He's the number 2. We're going to talk about him next week. I've already ruined it. He's my league winner at the tight end.
Why didn't I just come in next week and do the next one? Because I had that.
Run it back. We can run it back. But I just want to say this, and then we'll move into the game. But
yeah.
That's what I'm looking for. And that's why I say David Njoku's not on the don't draft list, but I'm looking for a tier or 2 earlier. Can I go grab Ferguson so that I don't have to take Njoku?
100%.
That's what I'm looking for. So if you do decide on Njoku, just be looking, is there a guy maybe a round or 2 earlier with a better path? Or do you just punt it and you say, look, I like Freiermuth or I like Schultz, and I just feel more comfortable. So just think on it. All right, guys. We're going to play a real quick game, a little higher or lower. Little bit of kind of questions that I've got. Who will have more points this season? Devon Achane or Raheem Mostert and Jalen Wright combined?
Devon Achane.
Okay. Mike?
I don't want to say it.
You can say it.
No.
You can't do it because he was on your do not draft list.
No, I'm gonna stick to my guns here. Raheem Mostert and
Mostert plus Jalen Wright. Okay.
Yeah.
I picked that question because I think he's going so high and the ADP is his ceiling. And I think some people are going to buy it. I know Victorious is here in the chat and I'm not going to go pull the comment up. It's buried in there, but he also said, Achane is the guy he's drafting the most in the NFL, right? His favorite player, something to that effect, right? So like there's people that are in on Achane and there's people like, I'm out. So also, here, and Rasta in the chat answering the questions. Yeah, guys in the chat, answer these questions. They're not just for Kendall and Mike. Let's all we can all play. All right, guys, question 2. You ready?
Sure.
No Bears quarterback in history, Kendall, has thrown for over 4,000 yards. Will Caleb Williams have more than 4,000 passing yards? And that is for the group chat as well.
No, he won't. Right.
Kendall,
it's fine.
Okay.
No,
all right. Last season. Wait, sorry, I got to get my notebook because I didn't want you guys to see this earlier. So I got extra notes in here. Last season, Jaden Reed was the Packers wide receiver 1. He finished with 792 receiving yards. Last season, Rashee Rice was the Chiefs wide receiver 1. He finished with 938 yards, but we anticipate a suspension is coming of some sort. Mm-hmm. Will any of either the Packers or the Chiefs wide receivers finish with over 800 receiving yards?
So all of them? You're saying all wide receivers?
Will any of the wide receivers for the Packers or the Chiefs finish over 800 receiving yards?
Yes.
Okay, which one? Or which one on each team? If you think one on each team can do it,
I think it would be. I think Hollywood. I would have gave it to Rice if he didn't have the suspension. I'll go Hollywood, or do you want to include Kelsey in that? Because then
no, Kelsey's not he's not a wide receiver.
Well,
I mean, he is, but like this question is about the statistics for the wide receiver room, so he doesn't count in this question.
So I would probably go Hollywood, and then for the Green Bay room, that one's a little bit tougher to answer. If we had this show 3 days ago, roughly, I would have probably said Watson, but I'm gonna not say Watson, and I'm gonna go with I think I'm gonna go Reed.
Okay, I'm putting up some of the comments here. Brown on the Chiefs, Vike saying Worthy, Dobbs, and Rice can do it. I know I had a couple guys thinking Watson can get close if he will. So
if he was healthy,
but it's a good line because I went and looked at it and I was like, all right, so it is a good line. You've got a lot of guys that can. No one's going to dominate targets. Like Kelsey is the guy, right? Like in Green Bay, I don't really know. We don't really know. Anyway, point being is like when I went and ran some numbers and pulled some stats, I was like, that's tough. Like that's why I wanted to ask you guys this. All right.
No, I like it.
Next question. Last one of this game. Then we got another game to play. The top 5 tight ends in ADP right now are Sam Laporta, Travis Kelce, Trey McBride, Mark Andrews, Dalton Kincaid. That's the top 5 right now in ADP.
Okay.
How many of those 5 will finish inside the top 5 at the position? Is that 4, Kendall?
That's 4.
Who's not going to do it?
I don't know.
Yeah. No, you gotta commit to it.
I gotta commit to who's not making it.
Yeah.
That's a tough one.
That's why I play the game.
No, that's a really tough one.
McBride.
I didn't want to make these easy.
McBride. Interesting.
All right. So I don't hate that. McBride is the one that's out. Tresnor in the comments says all 5 make it.
I'm in between 4 and 5. Like honestly, I do think that all 5 of those guys can definitely.
So you don't think there's anybody else that again?
No, Kincaid. I'm going to say Kincaid.
Kincaid doesn't.
McBride has a much clearer path. Kincaid has way more question marks. I love his upside, but Kincaid's in at 5 for a reason. I would say Fergs could easily pass Kincaid. I can see that happening at a reasonable clip. Yeah, that being said, I still like Kincaid, but
I like Kincaid more than most. He's probably tight end 3 for me.
Look, there's an outcome where Keon Coleman's great, Curtis Samuel's great, and Kincaid
100%.
just doesn't have the snap share. And if Allen plus Cooks take up too much of the red zone and the positive regression for Cooks goes in a way that doesn't quite go for Kincaid, that's how Kincaid doesn't get there. If Kincaid only scores 4 touchdowns and doesn't have, an 18+% target share, I can see him having a good season, but not paying off a top 5. That's like a very realistic range of outcomes where the other guys have such condensed offenses where there's too many paths.
Let's talk about this for a second. I think Victorious. I think Kincaid has the better quarterback and less competition. But hold on, and less competition than McBride.
100%.
Wow.
110%.
So you think
less competition is where I disagree.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask, Mike. You think there's less competition in Buffalo for Kincaid than there is 100%. For? So you know why? So you're out on that wide receiver core. You don't think that?
No, the only person the only person I'm on that team is Keenan Coleman.
You're out on Keon Coleman?
No.
You're in on Keon Coleman.
You hate everybody else. You like Keon.
I hate everybody else except for Shakir. Honestly, the only person that I don't like that I don't think everyone keeps hyping up and making him a thing is Curtis Samuel. He hasn't played a full season. I can't tell you how long.
He's old.
So if you really think you're putting your offense in the hand of a guy like Curtis Samuel, you're out of your mind. I'm sorry. So for me, he's he's out of that. And they have Mac Hollins. Okay, cool. Like I think he could do well. Great. Whatever. Right? Yeah, he's in Buffalo now, right? So Mac Hollins. Okay, cool. Big, tall, fast receiver. Great.
Kendall, are you on that same side, or do you think there's more competition in Arizona for McBride?
Much more.
I think it's almost not even a subjective. Like I think it's objectively there is more competition in Buffalo. Almost assuredly. Even if you think that the players aren't going to be as good, that doesn't take away from the objective competition, right? Like I like Michael Wilson. I think he's going to be a fine wide receiver too.
Yeah.
He played on the field at a high clip and just didn't touch McBride, right? Just absolutely didn't touch it. I don't see a wide receiver 3 really emerging. Zay Jones is running with the second string. I see them being much more pass heavy as an offense in general, where I think the Bills are probably going to run the ball at a much higher rate, especially in neutral 100%. Game situations.
Yeah. Dawson Knox is still there too. Let's just
he has a target competition. Look, Cooks can catch the ball. That's a thing.
That is his thing.
It is.
Yeah, if I run the math, I can almost tell you it's pretty much provable that Kincaid just has more competition.
Yeah, I'm taking. I'll be honest, guys. This was a good question, Victorious. It's got a good little mini back and forth going. I will say this. I'm taking Dawson Knox in round 18 of every best ball draft that I have Josh Allen in. I am taking Dawson Knox in round 18 as my third tight end to just in frickin' case, It's
because you're so overloaded on Kincaid that you need a way out.
Yeah, that too.
If Kincaid doesn't work out,
no, I actually don't have a lot of Kincaid in best ball. I have him in Dynasty.
It's hard to get Kincaid at best ball, honestly.
He's expensive right now. Best balls, we got to do a show.
If you're trying to get Josh Allen, see the problem is if you're trying to do the combo with Josh Allen and Kincaid, you're not going to get it.
You have to go around early on one of them.
But that's the problem.
Yeah,
everyone sees what you're doing to then grab Kincaid early, and then they end up screwing that anyway. Anyway, I think for that wide receiver core, it's going to be Keenan Coleman, then Kincaid, then it will be whatever wide receiver you want to go with, and then Dawson Knox sprinkled in there. So, and then James Cook, of course, but he's not going to get a heavy amount. But it's going to be a run-heavy offense.
I think there's more competition in Buffalo, and I think the scheme sets up differently.
I think it's the other way.
I'm in on McBride, man. I'm in. So, all right, last game of the night, boys. I call this one legit or bullshit.
Ooh,
okay.
George Pickens will finish this season as a wide receiver too.
You mean a top 24?
Top 24.
Legit.
Oh, we're split 1-1. All right, folks, jump in the comments and solve it for us.
Even with the Ayuk trade, still legit. Didn't change.
George Pickens will finish inside the top 24 this season. Legit or bullshit? All right, boys. You ready?
Yep.
Dontavian Wicks will be the Packers wide receiver 3.
Ooh. Well, I mean, yeah.
Bullshit.
Okay.
Okay.
Mike, legit or bullshit?
So you're saying that you think that he's going to be the wide receiver 1 or 2 in this offense?
Yes.
I would go. Yeah, I guess I'll go bullshit as well. I think he'll be a lot more involved.
Either Curtis Samuel or Khalil Shakir, you can choose either one, will have more fantasy points than Keon Coleman.
Wait, who?
Legit.
Than Keon Coleman.
No. Who are the other
either
two?
Curtis. You can either Curtis Samuel or Shakir.
Bullshit.
Bullshit. All right, so you're in on Keon Coleman. Okay.
Yeah.
I kind of like Samuels a little bit.
Okay.
I'm sorry, man.
The range of outcomes is swingy, but if the case against him is he doesn't stay healthy,
that's a huge. That's his history, though. He finished last season wide receiver 14 or 44. Wait, let's see.
Fair.
Hold on.
Fair.
Hold on. I'm looking at this right now with his seasons and how many games he's played. 9, 13, 16, 15. All right, whatever. Early seasons. 5. Then he played 2 full seasons technically with Washington. And he was still wide receiver 44.
Do you really get injured on Washington, or do you just want to go see a baseball game or some shit? Because
legit or bullshit
Washington
was supposed to be like bang bang, but I love that
you're not going to do
we're just chopping it up here. You ready?
Yeah.
Jamison Williams inside the top 24. Legit or bullshit?
Oh, legit.
Javonte Williams, running back 2 season. Legit or bullshit?
I'm going to go legit.
I'm going to go. Ooh, that is close in the line for me, but he's my RB25, so we're bullshit.
Kamani Vidal will start 2 games this season.
Does the practice squad play games?
He will start.
Legit.
Like scrimmage and stuff? That's cute.
I'm going to say legit.
Okay, you ready? This
might
be my favorite one. This is my favorite one.
Okay.
All right. Classic, you take it first. I'll go second on all these.
All right.
Will Levis will be a QB2 and will outscore Aaron Rodgers.
Oh, my God.
Legit. This is my favorite question.
Absolutely legit. I actually think he'll be right at that QB 12, if not higher.
You think Levis is a QB1?
Low end. Yeah.
Yep, I like him as QB2. Sign me up.
Yep.
Justin Fields will start and rush for 1,000 yards this season.
CFL, baby. Let's go.
Bullshit.
Not in this country. No.
Bullshit.
I've been hurt before. I won't do it again. Don't. I'll still root for Fields, but no. The chapter is
also
over.
Mike, can you run the comments? I'm like so into these questions right now. Just any of them that you see, because they're coming in so fast, and I'm so into these questions.
Oh yeah, no, you're good.
This is the best chat I think I've ever seen.
This has been the best show we've done.
This is great.
We've done, and we're twice as long as I wanted to go.
That's fine.
All right, you ready?
Yeah,
I like this one too. The all-in Cowboys, whose backfield currently consists of Ezekiel Elliott, Rico Dowdle, and Deuce Vaughn.
Yep.
Will have less fantasy points as a collective group this season than Derrick Henry.
Interesting. I like it.
Those 3 running backs, right?
Yes, those Kendall 3. So basically the entire running back room of the Cowboys will score less fantasy points than just Derrick Henry.
I think their leading rusher isn't even in the group yet. So yeah, going Derrick Henry.
Oh. Yeah, so I'm going to go
Khalil Herbert's going to lead that team
legit.
in rushing, no problem.
I'm legit there. Derrick Henry.
Okay.
Derrick Henry, your 20 touchdowns. Don't make us look stupid here, all right?
Yeah,
right. That's high. 20 is high. Okay, you ready?
Yep.
Braylon Allen will outscore J.K. Dobbins.
Oh, he's going to freaking lap him. Sorry, Mike. I had to jump in here, but my God, is he going to lap him? Lap him. Braylon Allen will be a top 36 running back.
Interesting. I'm going to go with it. I'm going to stay with it because I agree with anything on him. I think Braylon. I think Allen's going to be great.
Good luck playing on MetLife, though, buddy.
Yeah.
Be careful.
Shut up.
Seriously.
It's my stadium.
Okay. We got some legit and bullshit in here. Here we go. You ready?
Okay.
Roschon Johnson will start for the Chicago Bears at some point this season.
Interesting.
And be a second half league winner for fantasy.
Did I type that one?
League? Nope. I'll tell you what. You'll understand the question in a minute.
Mike, what do you think, bud? I can't answer this first, man.
I love the deferral. No, I'm not doing it. I'm gonna call bullshit. I think everything will. I can't see Roshan.
I think Roshan has 8 touchdowns this year, maybe 10.
Interesting.
You do know that DeAndre Swift's backup is a league winner every year since he entered the league. That's how the curse works.
So Kenneth Gainwell was a league winner last year.
Okay, last year Jalen Hurts, the actual backup running back, was quite good.
Yeah, there you go. All right, I'll take that.
I boxed myself out of that. You really called me on that.
You were lucky he did have somebody.
Oh, I had nothing prepared. No, I really, really like Roshan. He's like my second to last round pick. He's getting some steam.
He looked good against
right
second team defenses. He did.
Yeah.
Oh no, he was clearly good against the second team of the Houston Texans. Like legit.
I love this.
I love these questions.
In the comments,
I could
got him.
Yeah, I love it. This is so good. Yeah, that was.
I told
sharp,
you the game
man.
is the best part. The game is.
You want to know? You want to know something funny? I don't get the got-ems a lot. Believe me, this really. I'm like.
Well, I'd probably make some more up on the spot, but this is the last one that I had prepared. You ready? None of Devin Singletary, Tyrone Tracy, or Thursday night football from this evening's standout, Eric Gray. I think he was like 5 for 54 on a tutty, dude. He crushed it.
And 40 plus on his.
And he was the number. Okay, so all right,
tutties,
so none of Devin Singletary, Tyrone Tracy, or Eric Gray will be the starter after the Giants bye week in week 11.
So you don't think either 3 of them will make it to week 11?
No, the question is that's the question. Yeah.
Okay.
None of the current Giants backfield will be the starter for the team after the bye week, which is week 11.
So any one of them could be a starter. So I'm gonna go bullshit.
So you think one of them will survive?
Oh, yeah.
Singletary, the coaching tree, back with Dable, a lot of trust in him. Dable didn't get a lot of use out of him, but did use him in high leverage situations in a trustworthy way. I think Dable doesn't have a lot to work with, but he needs somebody he can trust to just do their job at a decent clip. He's got enough problems. I think he's going to be a stabilizing force, and he's just not even going to pay attention to the running back room. He's got other things to do. He's going to say, Singletary, just give me like a B- effort, and we're going to be in great shape, bud.
If you watched Hard Knocks.
No, I did. Go ahead. I did. I'm sure a lot of people
watched Hard Knocks, that's what they did. Honestly, they were looking for an efficient, price-effective running back, and that is Singletary. Singletary is going to be just fine. If you looked at Singletary stuff, he is a very competent running back. Yeah, his first couple seasons in Buffalo were rough. He had to play behind Zach Moss. They were fighting, for competition, whatever. He ended up taking over that role anyway. I love Devin Singletary, and he's been talked up from even guys like Frank Gore, which if you watch Hard Knocks, he was part of that. He was saying, man, this kid is the shit.
I think he's going to look bad running behind that offensive line.
Well, Usain
Bolt would look slow behind that line. But
the line, I think, is going to be much better this year.
So I asked that question. I didn't really want to end with that one, but I'm glad it stirred this up. And then Rafi's 69 bomb, dude. He's got a good question. We're going to get to that one. But I asked it because Devin Singletary is really, really low ADP right now.
I love Devin Singletary.
People are just ignoring him. They don't like him. It's not sexy, and it's not sexy.
He's my highest exposed player in best.
Is it? Yeah, but it's like
100%.
So the reason I asked the question was because it was like, do you really think if everyone is healthy that Tyrone Tracy or Eric Gray is honestly going to cut into that work? And no, it's not. We're not talking about cutting into Saquon's work, right? Talking about a lower ceiling, probably high floor, low ceiling Devin Singletary, who's relatively safe and kind of 75% off right now, right? Not free, but he's 3/4 discount. Anyway,
I love it.
I thought that was a good one. Let's get to Rafi's question.
I got a Giants fan here, so I love it.
Nice. This was a good one, and I didn't answer the questions. I didn't answer the questions because I wrote all the questions, so I get to answer one. So I'll go last because you guys have been hammering this thing. You guys have been awesome. Who has more rushing yards? Jaden Daniels, Austin Eckler. Rushing yards. Jaden Daniels, Austin Eckler.
I'm gonna go Eckler.
Rushing, okay. All right. Kendall?
I'm gonna go Jaden. in rushing. You give Austin Eckler rushing plus passing, just total yards, I'd take him at that point.
Yeah.
But I think Jaden probably runs for like 700-800. I think Eckler probably gets to 6, maybe. It's close.
You guys think it's going to be that high?
The question as it's written,
it needs to be.
I think Austin Eckler's the pass catching back, and I think Brian Robinson's the between the tackles back.
Oh, I can understand
that. Rushing yards, yeah, I think it's going to be Jaden. I think Kendall, you're spot on. Like if the question was Jaden Daniels or Eckler, Eckler's total yardage. Also, let's answer that. All right, so that's a question now. Jaden Daniels or Eckler's total yardage? Are you still on the?
Oh, Eckler.
I'd take Eckler at that point.
I'd take Eckler at that point too. Yeah,
I think he's more efficient this year, but he's not going to have enough attempts. He'll look like Tony Pollard did 2 years ago, but with half the attempts. You know, he's not crossing, I think, 150 rushes. So
yeah, but this is a guy. This is a guy that ended up. He was the running back 2 years, like less than 2 years ago. So
let's do this one, but without the Amon or the St. Brown part. Who finishes wide receiver 1? Give me 2 players that you realistically think are going to finish as the wide receiver 1, because otherwise you could just name the top 5 and you're probably going to be right. But give me the top 2 guys.
Tyreek Hill, Jamar Chase.
Hill and Chase. Okay. Classic.
Brown and Hill.
AJ Brown and Tyreek Hill.
No, St. Brown. Brown.
That's the same 2 that I have. That's the same 2.
Brown and Hill. Yep.
I think it's Amon-Ra and St. Brown. Rasta says Hill and Chase. My only concern with Chase right now is the same thing that I had a concern with. Mine it's completely different because of the talent, but like
my bad
with Josh Jacobs not playing like Jamar Chase and CeeDee Lamb, like they need to. Hopefully they're running and working out. Like I don't know what the rules are when you're a hold in, but like they need practice reps and game reps, because I'm not saying they're going to be terrible. Please draft CeeDee Lamb and Jamar Chase in the top 5 wide receivers. Like don't do something
Chase
stupid.
Is holding in. I haven't seen anything like that.
He's not practicing at all.
Oh wow, I didn't see that. They're there at practice. Okay,
they're there, but fine. Like,
yeah.
I want them to be happy. You know what I mean? Like, I want them to be happy players.
They saw JJ get paid,
and they saw Amon-Ra got paid, and then Tyreek just got new money with no years, which is basically just a big fat. I mean, he's got 20,000 kids. But all right, last question, then I'm out. Give me your Super Bowl prediction.
Oh my God.
Yeah. In August, the way that you, I mean, I'm not holding you to this.
Repeat last year, same result.
Chiefs,
and we all hate it.
Chiefs over the Niners. Wow. Thanks, Kendall. You're not invited back to the show ever again.
You know what I want?
Look, I want to. I'll give you the. Let me eliminate some players one by one. I love Detroit. I want to see him there so bad. I am not rooting against the rigged NFL. All right, like it's just if someone knocks him off, I think it is Detroit. Right? I think that could work. I just don't see it happening. The Ravens, you got to find a quarterback that has some clutch in him. Lamar's great. He's LeBron James. Can't hit a game winner. Okay, it's not happening. Okay, he can have a great 3.5 quarters. He's not that guy. He's not that guy. You have to be a pocket passer at an elite level and make really quick decisions to win a Super Bowl. He doesn't have it. He just does, and even if he had it, I don't know that the offensive weapons are really honestly elite enough.
Oh, he just get kicked off the show? I didn't do anything. What happened? Kendall, come back. Come back to us.
Just too right. Just speaking truth.
You just got kicked.
I think Phil secretly cut him out. Yeah,
I didn't do anything.
What is he doing?
It's because Rasta's got his computer something hooked up.
It's starting to get
Rasta's messing this up.
It's definitely
all right. Let's get some guys in the chat. We got Rams.
I wanted to bring something up.
Oh, sorry.
Me and Trenzer are mind melding right now. It's incredible because these are the exact teams I was going to say, and then I was going to say that my hope is that it's Lions and Texans. That's what I would love to see as the 2 Super Bowl guys. Like, that's what I want. I was mind melding when I saw that. I was like, holy shit, he's in my mind.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to do it. Niners over Ravens. I think the Chiefs finally hit the stumbling block, and it's a lot. A three-peat is really hard.
I've never been rooting for your harder for your takes, bro. I want it. I want it bad. And getting to watch the Ravens lose and just be on like Team Anti-Lamar is going to feel so good.
Hey, man. We'll see. I don't know. The Niners got some. I think Victorious was talking about too. There's some stuff they got to clean up if they're going to make a run at it too, because their wide receiver room is. One of them's very grumpy right now. He's not very happy with not getting along with his bosses at work. So
yeah.
All right, fellas and ladies, if there's any ladies in there, awesome show. Way longer than I ever wanted to go, but absolutely fantastic.
Welcome to
we
a
need
show.
To have, we need to have Trezner in the comments every week, because that man he made it fantastic. There's other guys obviously shouting out and being awesome participants, but y'all know how to find me. Shoot me a DM at P Ruskin on Sleeper. Some of the guys that were jumping in the chat, questions that I read at the end, like the games, I just make that shit up. So if you guys have stuff that you think's good, shoot it over. I'll feature it. You know what I mean? Like, it'd be awesome. You guys are all smart, legit guys. You all do the same stuff we do. Look at the statistics. Let's find a way to get some of the questions that you guys want to hear into the show as well, whether it's a game or like a topic. But Mike, Kendall, thank you guys as always. Kendall, real quick, tell the folks where they can find you, my man.
Yeah. If you want to talk, hang out, do a little bit of fantasy football, come check me out at the Fantasy Football Tavern on YouTube. Patreon is almost up and running. Don't send me any money yet. I'm not quite worth it, but check it out soon. Definitely check out all of our Patreons. But come check me out on YouTube. I did a lot of early Dynasty content and need some subscription love. Need to get up to 1,000. So let me know what you want to see on the Fantasy Football Tavern. Come check it out.
Awesome, brother. Classic. Tell the folks where they can find you as well.
Well, make sure you guys are, of course, checking out the Get Right Fantasy Network. As Anthony's telling you, make sure you guys like and subscribe to our shows as well. We are now soon almost there. We're getting there to in season, but right now we are doing the mock draft tournament of the champions. So make sure you guys check out. If you go into our, if you are watching from our channel, go to the description below. We're going to have the sleeper, our private sleeper channel. Make sure you guys are going in there. We have all of our mock draft rooms set up for you guys to jump in. These two guys, right wherever you guys are helping out with those types of mock drafts as well. So make sure you guys are getting in there. We'd love to have you guys. Once we get everyone together, I think it's August 30th. We're going to have a best ball set up for everybody, $50. You can win money. So please get involved if you can. Also in season, we're going to be doing we're going to be having shows Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday morning with myself and maybe one of these two gentlemen. But we're also going to have Friday nights with breakdowns with these two guys. We're going to try something a little new. We'll see. We're kind of still working it out, but I think it's going to work out the way we want. So make sure you guys check us out. And just excited.
Awesome. Well, and as always, you can find me at The Extra Point on YouTube. I just threw Kendall's Fantasy Football Tavern in the link as in the chat along with mine. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. You can also catch me on Patreon and Spotify. Next week, we're going to be doing league winners. I've already told you guys
I might have to come back.
I was going to say, come back. I mean, let's just run it back next week. We're doing league winners. I think I'll be awesome. And, you know, as always, there might be a few games on the Extra Point that we play at the end, give the people what they want. So thanks, guys. It was an awesome show. Looking forward to Kendall, myself, Mike. We will be obviously doing more content to come. And thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Extra Point. Catch y'all later.